So good morning. So today, in a change to the normal format for Phil's blog, kindly Phil's given up his time to respond to some of the questions which colleagues put forward as a response to the call out to ask Phil a question in the blog last week. So good morning, Phil.
Morning.
Thank you for giving up the time today. Hopefully we'll find this a format where colleagues can engage and see, obviously, that their questions are put to it. So I'm going to put those questions which colleagues asked on their behalf, and we'll go through those if that's okay with you today. So I guess the first questions that we had come in, one of them was around local suppliers. As we know, during the crisis, we experienced some availability issues within our food stores, and therefore to supplement the range, we worked with local suppliers, and the local sourcing team did a fantastic job in arranging that with suppliers like Alden's Butchers in Oxford, the British Honey Company, as an interim measure. And Wendy Parks from Food, she sent an email in saying that, do you think that we'll be investing more in those local ranges to continue to complement the core range and help drive our business in the future?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I certainly hope so, because it's been a brilliant effort by all concerned. As I said, I think I mentioned at the AGM a couple of weeks back, we reached out to a number of local suppliers and they really stepped up. So existing suppliers, but also, as you said, some new ones like Alden's Butchers in Oxford. Incredibly, our sales of locally sourced products are up almost 80% on last year. So it just illustrates the important role that those local suppliers have played. I know that Rupert Newman, the Chief Retail Officer for Food, and his team are keen to expand that opportunity. And I think we've also said that we want to hear from any other local suppliers that we're not dealing with today. So yeah, I mean, I'd be really disappointed if we didn't make the most of this this opportunity and further develop, those great relationships we have with local suppliers.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's good to see that suppliers like Just Chris, for example, I mean, they seem to be incredibly grateful as well for the support we've given to their businesses, providing, obviously a new route for some of those from market where Just Chris was selling it obviously into trade and into pub services, and the fact that we put it into more of our stores. You may have seen they even sent a video in thanking colleagues and for the business, which is fantastic, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I did, and the important thing to recognise is local suppliers employ local people. So we're spending money with them; their employees are spending money back with us. So it's it's a circular economy, and therefore it makes sense for everyone if we can do it. It's not always easy in terms of logistics, and that presents challenges, and those are things you have to work through. But as I said, I think there's a lot more opportunities for us in terms of building those relationships.
Yeah, brilliant, great. Okay, well, I guess one of our success stories and something we can all be proud of is the home delivery service that we've been providing to the most vulnerable in the communities. And I think we're closely approaching 40,000 home deliveries. And we've seen positive reaction within the press. We've also seen some other societies, give praise in terms of how agile we've been in moving that forward. And I guess there's a couple of questions really from Sharon Williams in Food and Jenny Shorthouse also in Food, and they'd like to know whether we're going to maintain the home delivery service to the vulnerable people in our communities. And Mike has added sort of question onto that also. Has any thought been given to rewarding those volunteers who are doing such a great job in helping provide that service to those vulnerable members of the community?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'll just echo your comments about what a great job has been done. I mean, I think it's over 40,000 deliveries now, and 50% of those deliveries, just over 50% in fact, have been made with volunteers out in those communities. So it is a tremendous effort by all concerned, and I think when you see the people that are receiving those deliveries and how important it is to them, and you read some of the stories, particularly where they've tried to get online with some of the major supermarkets to order food and have been unable to do so, and that's quite desperate if you're in that situation and you're being told to stay indoors. So I think we've really played our part and working with communities, done a great job, and I know our colleagues in our food stores have worked tirelessly in terms of maintaining that service, and you couldn't ask any more from them in that respect. So what does the future look like? Firstly, well, certainly, all the time there's a need, all the time people are being told to stay indoors, the more vulnerable people, the shielded people, we're going to be there for them to supply that food to them. So that's a guarantee. And who knows how long that's going to last for. And I think what's important is that this is about meeting members' needs, whatever those needs might be at any time. And I think that's the commitment we will make, about meeting their needs. I don't think it's a simple question about whether we'll continue with home delivery or not. I think it's more about how do you meet members' needs. And those needs change from time to time, as we're seeing now. Members that perhaps would prefer ordinarily to come and walk to stores or chat with colleagues and enjoy that social experience of actually visiting stores are being told to stay indoors. So they have a need for a delivery. In the future, that might be, an infrequent requirement, but maybe a requirement we need to be able to meet. And then in addition to that, I think when you break it down, you think about, is there a difference between how you look at bulky items, perhaps compared with fresh and perishable food? Maybe there's an opportunity to think differently in terms of what's delivered, what's not delivered. And then you just talked about local suppliers. I know that when I talk to members at AGMs and other meetings, they're often saying, I've seen in this store I can buy this local product, but I can't buy it in another store. Why can't you stock more local products in more stores? And of course, space is an issue for us. So getting range into stores can be a problem, particularly in the smaller stores. So, there may be opportunities in the future to look at how we use those sorts of services to expand the reach of locally sourced products and things. So those things that we've looked at in the past and given some consideration to, and perhaps now through this process and what we've learned in the last couple of months is that, we can do it and we can be successful in doing it. We've got to be careful. The reality is most online delivery services in food lose money. Even Ocado don't make money out of delivering food. So we've just got to be careful because, we've got to do things in an affordable way. But I certainly think that we're never going to go completely back to normal, and I think there are opportunities. And then just to answer the other point about rewarding volunteers, I think 700 volunteers in total, something like that, individual people that have stepped forward, some on an individual basis who've just signed up directly with us, some through the community groups we work with. So, we've got to recognise that in some way, and actually I know that Pete Westall and Rupert have looked at how we can do that. I think that's about to be put in place. Don't want to steal their thunder today, but I would expect to see something on that, if not next week, the week after.
Fantastic. Okay, that's great. So in terms of colleague protection, really, social distancing, I guess, has been a key priority for the business. And feedback from colleagues regarding the supply of PPE, the social distancing measures have been put in place, has so far been excellent, really, especially with regards to the early intervention with checkout and kiosk screens. Then we went back in and put additional screens in after some initial feedback. But given that social distancing is going to be here for some time to come, we've had, no surprise, a couple of questions regarding that. So firstly, from Dave Hughes from Food, do you see checkout screens becoming a permanent fixture? As I say, colleagues are saying that they feel better protected and would like to keep them. And then secondly, really around to do with format, really. So again, Mike Seaton from Food and Lee Stapleton, also Food, has said, with the current crisis, how has it impacted our thoughts on new store openings, new store layouts, especially in convenience, because obviously the general narrower aisles and profile, and then obviously given that the thought to when we actually launch the stores and social distance measuring. So quite a cluster of questions, but predominantly around checkout screens and then how it's affecting our thoughts on format of stores going forward.
Yeah, and I think this is, and it's not just about food stores. Obviously, this
Sure.
relates to all of our branches that are open to the public. And it's been a obviously unprecedented period of time for us, and as for all retailers and all businesses open to the public, and we've had to respond at pace and install protection in terms of equipment, but also in terms of gloves and garments. I think we've already mentioned a few times we've spent well over £1 million already investing in that type of equipment. We expect that to be around £2 million by the time we get through this, if not more. So in food stores, as you said, protective screens plus floor stickers, fixed sanitizer units, but even in areas such as our nurseries, where we're planning to open all two of our nurseries again from next week. Investing in again barriers so that we can keep children in clusters. Investing in contactless thermometers, which aren't cheap, to record the temperature of every child arriving at the nursery. So across our businesses, we are investing significant sums of money to keep both our colleagues and our customers and their children safe. So that's not going to change. We're committed to that for however long this lasts. Will screens stay forever? I don't know. I think it's something we will want to engage colleagues and customers on. I think there may be better ways to protect, and I think the point about protection is an important point. What we've installed, I wouldn't say are permanent fixtures. I think they're okay. They're pretty robust. But will they last forever? No, they won't. So we'd have to do something for the longer term anyway. And I think then, Lee makes that point around layouts of stores and how you equip stores and other branches as well. And I think that will change. And I think whether that's, checkout space further apart or more self-checkout, whether it's counters with bigger screens or barriers, it's also about technology, using click and collect more, contactless payments, all those things are relevant. And I think, you'd expect us as colleagues to be putting a lot of thought into that now in terms of our future design, and certainly we are. And in doing so, of course, we want to get on and open new stores. We have a pipeline of new food stores and childcare nurseries now, and we want to get on and commit to opening those. I mean, Botley's opening in July, which is a new food market that will incorporate social distancing as part of its design and in the opening. And then we've got quite a lot of convenience stores scheduled to open. We've pushed them back to later in the year, and partly that's because of the uncertainty around the availability of contractors and equipment, but also it's to give us the time to really think about how best to lay out those stores and design them for the longer term. So I think again, as I was saying on home deliveries, I don't think it's ever going to go back to completely how it was, but I want to make sure that we take the views of colleagues and indeed customers into account when thinking that through. But as far as our pipeline and developing and opening new businesses, it's not quite business as usual, but actually there's a lot of exciting stuff to come.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, who knows what the new normal really looks like, I guess, and what people expect. And I think our job, as you've said repeatedly, I guess, is to make sure that customers feel comfortable when they're using any of our facilities, to make sure that they continue to trade with us, and indeed we might attract new customers as a result. So I'm sure any improvements will be there.
We've been learning. I think that's the important thing, is that we've had to make a lot of decisions at pace. We didn't have a lot of time to get things, whether it was PPE or equipment. So in some things you get right, some things you then have to readjust, as you mentioned. Important that we continue to learn, important that colleagues continue to feed back to us in an open and honest way. That's really important to us.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of ways of working, colleague wellbeing, I guess we've all had to adjust since the situation has developed and changed our ways of working. And head office colleagues have been able to work from home, utilising some of the new tools that we rolled out earlier in the year, such as Skype and Teams as it progresses. And we've been able to conduct meetings, indeed do interviews like this, I guess, over the line, and stay in touch with each other, and continue, importantly, to provide a service both to internal customers and external customers. And Lee really asked a question I give at the moment in terms of, given that we've got this capability and we seem to be able to work on using this new technology and the relative set of that, do we actually need a physical head office anymore for people to return to?
I think it's very early days in that respect. My instinct is yes, and I'll tell you why. I think we've been very operationally focused in the last couple of months. A lot of tasks, keep the businesses running, keep the services in place, and that's fine. And we've done a good job at it. And I think the IT that we have is superb, and I think the investments that have been made in the last few years have really put us in good stead to be able to do what we've done. But I think not everybody enjoys working from home. Not everybody has great facilities to work from home. If you're a younger member of our team that's perhaps still living with your parents, it's not easy to work from home. Or if you live in a fairly confined space, it's not easy. Or there's other people in your household. Some people enjoy the social interaction, particularly those people that live on their own, and I think that's important to them. And I think further to that, people develop in their careers by working with other people, watching other people, learning from them in meetings and sessions. And I think that's something that's quite hard to do using technology. As good as the technology is, I think it's still quite hard for people to do that. So I think, whether it's as a result in mental welfare, whether it's in people's individual development. I think actually sometimes people being together is important. And I also think that, whilst, as I said, you can complete tasks and operationally you can do things, I think sometimes when it's about creating things, whether that's strategic thinking or creating programs or plans, sometimes people work best when they are together and, and they're interacting human to human in the way that we've seen people in the past. So I don't think it's a straightforward question and a straightforward answer. I think what will be important going forward, and I think this is the thing that we've proven, is flexibility and agility is important. And I think, we will be a better employer if we allow people to have choice about when they work in the office, when they work from home. It will make it easier for us to recruit people. I think it'll allow people to work their home lives around their work lives, particularly people with young children that perhaps feel under pressure now to be at the office at a certain time. So I think all those things are learnings that we can take out of this, and to prove that we can actually be more flexible and take advantage of that. So I don't think it will completely go back to normal, but no, I think we will retain an HQ, but perhaps it'll be different in terms of the way people interact with it and how people use it.
Yeah, great. I mean, I think, as you say, it's quite important that people learn from people as well, and I think even more so, I guess, if you're a new colleague to the business as well, to understand the ways of working, the culture and all those kinds of things, that's difficult to do from a remote base when, as you say, you're just tasked or focused on just getting the job done in certain areas. So I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, it's important to have a space where people can meet as well. So I guess staying on that theme, changes the way to working. Jeremy Ince in Food would like to know, in terms of how do you think the ongoing situation will affect the mental health of not only those colleagues working day to day in the retail frontline environments, but also those colleagues who will be returning to very difficult or different arrangements after extended periods away, because we know we've got a number of furloughed colleagues. And you think, what do we think that we can do to make that as good as it can possibly be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there isn't anyone that hasn't been affected by this situation, whether you're working, not working. It's impacted people in profound ways. It's impacted members of the public, it's impacted colleagues working. And so I think it's important that we recognise that, and it'll have different impacts on different people depending on their circumstances, but also in terms of their attitudes and how they see things. What's really important for us is that we keep in contact with people, that we talk to them. If you're a colleague that's been shielded for what's at least 12 weeks now, I'd like to increase to 16 weeks. We have just under 700 colleagues who are in that category who haven't worked for that time. It's important for them that they keep in touch and we keep in touch with them. They can talk to other colleagues who have worked throughout the process and could talk to them about how that's, how we've operated, what we've done to protect people in that respect and to ensure that they're working in safe environments. And of course, there's colleagues furloughed as well, particularly in our travel and childcare nursery businesses, and that's a great example. Next week we will be reopening all but two of our childcare nurseries, and so we'll be welcoming quite a few colleagues back, and they'll be talking to those that have worked in the 18 nurseries that have opened and getting an understanding of what it means. So I think that's important, is that colleagues can talk to colleagues and we keep communicating. I think then in addition to that, clearly there are other resources that we have made available, whether that's the Grace VA helpline, the information, brilliant work that's been done by Mind just to give people tips and advice. The activities that Becky Brain has run on a week-to-week basis, I think, have been great. And so you can never do too much, I think, in this scenario, and I think we have to keep talking to colleagues. And I would just say to anyone watching this now, if you're worried, if you're not sure about something, then please do talk to us. And there's lots of ways you can do that, either through Colleague Connect or pick up the phone or whatever you want to do. But just do talk to us about it. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Thanks. So in terms of the overall approach to PPE benefits and, as we just mentioned, furloughing of colleagues, I think it's fair to say overwhelmingly the comments and feedback from colleagues have been positive. But recently, as you see, through Colleague Connect, the tool is there, and we've had a number of less positive comments, including describing, I guess, the 10% bonus payment to colleagues as danger money. And I just wondered how you felt about that.
Yeah, I mean, these are difficult times for everyone, as I said, and I think, emotions run high, and I get that, I absolutely get it, and I think it's important that we listen to all of our colleagues constantly, and that's why we've launched the Pulse survey on that very subject. We've asked all the colleagues to take part in that. I think as of today or yesterday, there was 2,600 colleagues who have completed that survey, which is about a third, which is brilliant. But it's open until next Wednesday. So, if you have a view or views and you've not completed that survey, use it. That's what we want. I want you to feedback. So, I think we've made decisions throughout this process on behalf of our colleagues, which I would say have been intended to be fair to all. Whether that's how we've treated colleagues that have been furloughed, how we've treated those that have been shielded, what we've done in terms of rewards. The one thing I would say is I have never seen this as danger money, and it's not danger money. If I thought we were putting colleagues in danger, then I'd close the branches. We've invested, as I said earlier, already over £1 million in personal protection equipment. That's going to go over £2 million by the time we're through this, and that's to ensure that we are operating in safe environments. And if colleagues follow the training they've been given and use the equipment that's been supplied, then they are safe environments. And there's always some risk, but there's risk wherever you go and whatever you do. And it's the important thing for us is to reduce that risk as far as we possibly can and make it as a safer environment can. So I've never seen it as danger money. It's always been about reward. Initially, we recognised that the branches that were trading, whether that's in food or funeral or nurseries, we're having to face into different demands. We're very busy, and we wanted to say thank you to colleagues for their efforts. Turning up for work, working extra hours, being flexible in terms of those arrangements. So it was very much always seen as a thank you. And initially, in terms of the enhanced pay, we agreed and informed the board that that would be a payment of 4 weeks' pay. So we would make that increased pay 4 weeks. We then took the decision to extend that by a further few weeks, and then another few weeks. So it's eventually run on to the end of May, and that was, as I said, as a thank you. In addition, we increased the colleague discounts in food and childcare nurseries for a 6-week period. We provided free meals to anyone working in our frontline operations for a 6-week period. So these were significant benefits we put in place for a fixed period of time, and it was always intended to be a fixed period of time, but as I say, it was extended. If you work it out for an average full-time colleague, it's over £400 benefit without the food discount, and that's on top of that because that depends on the individual spend. And I think that compares favourably with other retailers. If you look at Tesco Aldi, it's equivalent to where they are. It's better than has been provided by Sainsbury's, Asda, Lidl, and indeed the Co-op Group. The Co-op Group paid a fixed £100 payment to their colleagues plus a day's holiday. So everyone's doing different things, but I think all of those retailers would say the same thing as us. It's not danger money, it's a thank you. And then the other thing I would point out, and I think this is really important, is that those retailers aren't running travel businesses and childcare nurseries. And whilst we have seen an increased position in food and additional sales because of what's been going on, we need to reflect on the fact that our travel business and our childcare nursery business has been hit very, very hard through this, and will continue to be so. Although we are reopening our nurseries, we're on a restricted capacity. Some of our travel branches will reopen on the 15th of July, but most won't at that time. And the reality is, if you look at those two businesses, the combined profit effect on those two businesses as a result of COVID-19 is likely to be in excess of £15 million, in a negative way. Now, when you consider those two businesses last year had their most profitable years, you can see the impact and what we're having to deal with. So, we have invested significantly in PPE. We've invested £2.5 million in enhanced benefits for colleagues. We've not cut the pay of any colleague through this process, which I think is something we wanted to ensure that, well, not forcibly anyway, and that's been a fair approach. And we are going to see quite a significant impact on a number of our businesses as a result of what's been going on. So these decisions aren't easy. Whenever we make them, we try to be fair. We try to keep to our values. One of those values is democracy. That's about people saying what they think, and I appreciate, and that's what we want people to do, either via Colleague Connect. But as I said at the start, use the Pulse survey. Tell us what you think. Be involved in how we reach these decisions for the future.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I hope that gives you a bit of my perspective on it. And as I said, we'll keep learning, we'll keep talking to colleagues, we'll keep understanding, where we're at with these measures and these benefits. And, I think also we'd already announced this year that we're increasing the base level pay for our lowest paid workers to £9 an hour from October. That's a 7.5% increase. That's more than the increase we made last year. We're continuing to want to increase that payment and reduce the gap. So we've already committed to that, and that will go ahead in October. And in addition to that, Claire Moore is working on a new total reward strategy for the organisation, which will look at benefits for colleagues. I'm not going to announce anything today or say what's coming because Claire's still working on it. But they're all intended to respond to what colleagues have been saying to us about benefits and about pay. And I think 3,000 colleagues took part in the survey that Claire ran to understand what's important to you. So we will continue to talk to you about what's important to you. But the one thing I would say, what we do has to be affordable. We're a cooperative business. What do we do with our profits? We share it three ways. We share it by reinvesting in your businesses, either in new branches or refurbishments. We share it with our communities, and many of those are the voluntary groups that have stepped up to deliver to our most vulnerable members of our community, and we share it with our members, and that includes you, our colleagues. And indeed, at the AGM 2 weeks ago, our members agreed to defer their element till later in the year and make a decision later in the year. But what they did say, I think rightly so, is that you should reward the colleagues. And so the colleague thank you vouchers will be paid, and what we've done is brought those forward, and they'll be paid in June rather than in November when ordinarily be paid. So we are listening and we are taking account of the situation, but what we do has to be affordable.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think, as you said, in terms of the three ways of investing, I think we've got some great examples in terms of the community with the NHS funds that we've put up with an initial fund of 25,000, the food bank fund, again, initial 25,000, and more recently the community restart fund of 75,000. So there's certainly a lot being ploughed back into those local communities, which is vitally important, as you say, is part of what we do as a cooperative. So that's great. Okay, so just I guess looking to the future really, as we come out of different changes to the lockdown situation. Nigel Burke's really saying, in terms of going forward, has the company got any plans for bulk antibody testing in terms of to find out whether people have had COVID-19? It's one of those key tactics, I guess, from the government, and just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, obviously it's a difficult area, testing, and whether that's difficult for government or difficult for organisations or individuals, it's not a straightforward area. And I think we're going to follow the government guidelines on this all the way through. We did buy some tests early on, not very many, just a few, just in case tests weren't available for key workers and we needed to test people. Fortunately, the government made those tests available to key workers, so anyone working for us can be tested if they have symptoms, which is obviously the test to see if you have it now. In terms of the antibody test, which is to see whether you've had it, again, we understand that the government may implement a programme to do that, and we would want to support that in whatever way we can, and that's probably the right way to do it. So we're not ruling out acquiring our own testing, but we'd rather do what's being recommended by the government. I think you may have seen recently in a number of online pharmacy retailers acquired tests and started to sell them and have now had to take them off sale and refund people that bought them because they're not backed on that proven test. So it's really important that when you do carry out testing, you're carrying out what's been approved by Public Health England as official test process. Otherwise, it can have unintended consequences. So I'm certainly not ruling it out, but at this stage, there's no plans to do so. But we will follow the government advice on this.
Fantastic. Okay. So I guess some of the positives out of this in terms of the business, we've seen a greater use of our food stores, be that in the rural stores or community stores over the recent months. And again, Jenny and Food, with the amount of new customers that we're attracting, would it be possible to have members' cards in store so they could set them up immediately rather than them leaving the store and then going away and then following the current process, which obviously not only that is online, but also then ringing the membership line. So I guess it's about being able to recruit more members really as a result of this, with people using the stores more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, but I think actually it was a challenge for us before COVID-19. I mean, if you take our food stores, only 1 in 4 of our transactions are with members. So we already had, three-quarters of our shoppers shopping with us who weren't members. So, we've been looking at why is that the case? What are the barriers to people becoming members? And I think there's two elements to that. One is how easy it is to sign up, of course, but then also it's about what are the benefits of membership, whether they're financial benefits or the involvement benefits and democratic benefits, being able to influence decision making. And I don't know that we've done as well as we could have done in terms of explaining that or giving our colleagues in our branches the equipment or the tools in order to do that. And that's something we already recognised and have been working on for some time, as a result of which there are some exciting changes about to land for membership and how we reward members, how easy it is to sign them up in branches, how we use technology to do that. And those changes are imminent. We are already piloting in a number of our food stores a new member reward mechanism, which looks at personal offers for members, looks at bespoke type deals, something we learnt from the work we did last year. But further to that, we're developing a new member sign-up platform via the website, using new digital means. We are also developing a new way of rewarding members, which I can't go into today because we've still got to work this through with the board and get approval on it. But subject to that, it's very exciting, and it will significantly change our relationship with our members going forward, and importantly give colleagues much more compelling reasons for persuading people to become members or talk to them about membership, and I think that's going to make a big change. And part of that is making it easier for people to sign up at the time of transaction, which is exactly the point you make. And we've come up with a lot of different ways of doing that, and I think you'll see in the next few weeks and months as we start to introduce those changes, that we are reflecting on that and that we're dealing with it, because it's been a big opportunity for us for a long time. We have an ambition to ensure that over 50% of our business is with our membership. Today, overall, it's about a third. As I said to you just now, in food, it's only 25%. So we've got a long way to go, and we recognise that we need to put a lot more in place to do that, but that's coming, and I think this time next year we'll be looking at a very different set of numbers in that respect.
That's fantastic, and I know that's something people really look forward to, so I guess we'll revisit that further down the line, and perhaps get you on back online to talk about Absolutely. That in the future. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, sure. So the last one really comes from Gavin Bruce in Funeral, and again Jenny, really, because it's sort of combined questions. So as we look to the future, in terms of how we emerge from the current situation, seeing a couple of questions really. What do you see the biggest challenge for the society as a whole following the pandemic for both colleagues and members? And also, will the society continue to operate with the pandemic on its agenda? And what is the plan in terms of keeping all our businesses on track moving forward as we may face a second or further wave of COVID-19?
Okay, well, let me answer the second part of that question first. So, will there be a second or third wave? None of us really know. I think we all hope not. But what's really important is that we plan for that eventuality, and that's indeed what we have done and are doing, both in terms of financially and operationally. So we have modelled another wave in the autumn this year, and clearly operationally we're planning for that. And when we were talking earlier about screens and things, that's why it's important that we're not all suddenly thinking we're back to normal in July or August and removing all the equipment and then have to go and reinstall it all again if things re-emerge. And let's hope they don't, but we've got to be prepared for that. So I think we are preparing for that, and you'd expect us to. And of course, we've learned a lot in the last few months, so we'll do some things differently in respect to that as we go forward, and making sure we've got adequate stocks of PPE, etc., is all part and parcel of preparing for what we hope doesn't happen. Then on the wider point, in terms of the bigger impact on our society and our businesses, unfortunately, I think the biggest challenge when we come out of the pandemic will be the effect on the economy. There's likely to be a worldwide recession that will dent consumer confidence, consumer spending power, and that will impact us along with all other businesses. As you know, we've got to be prepared for that and face into that and not hide away from it, and that will result in difficult decisions being made for us. But importantly, I think decisions that we are in control of. And you know, I mentioned the AGM 2 weeks ago. The decision last year the board made in respect of our energy business, which was a really volatile area of the organisation and put us under great risk, was a really important decision, because having done that and removed that significant risk, we are in a much better shape now, and we are in control of our business in a way that perhaps we weren't in the past. And we have great businesses. Some of them have been impacted negatively by COVID-19. Some of them have had a more positive response, but they are essentially in the main great businesses. But we will continue to take difficult decisions, whether that's about individual sites and locations that are not profitable, whether it's about particular services. What we've done in the last couple of months is developed a new thinking, and it's on a sort of three-pronged basis. We call it survive, revive and thrive. Survive was the immediate period, the last couple of months. How do we keep our businesses running? How do we keep people safe? How do we make sure that operationally we can do as much as we can for our members and customers? Revive is about how we get these businesses going again, particularly travel and childcare. That period is from the 1st of June, so Monday, through to the end of September. That's the period we're looking at. And it's not just in travel and childcare that we'll be putting effort, it's in all of our businesses. So in food, for example, we expect more people to be at home this summer, not going away. Therefore, what are they going to spend their money on when they're home? Are they going to have more barbecues? Are they going to want things for their gardens? Are they going to want to buy better food? So all those things have been built into those plans, and the teams have done great jobs in developing the thinking, and a lot of work going on to really revive our businesses and get the most out of that period through to the end of September. And then crucially, how do we thrive? How do we take the opportunity as we come through this to recognise the new landscape, the new opportunities? And a lot of that will be about investment in digital online services, where we have to up our game. The member reward piece will be a big part of that I mentioned just now. So how do we really think about our operations, and how do we reach out to as many customers as we can? And there's a lot of work going into that. So whilst there was a challenge ahead, and it will be an economic challenge for the whole world, and particularly here in the UK, we're in a good place to deal with it. And I think if we all stick together and we work hard and we keep investing in the right things, and we're careful about where we invest and how we spend our money, then I think we'll come through that. And not only will we come through it, but we will be a stronger business for it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Phil. Well, I guess that concludes the conversation for today. Firstly, I'd like to thank the colleagues for sending in their questions. That's great. And for your time as well, Phil, and for being so candid with your responses. I hope the colleagues find this informative, and we'll revisit this format at some point in the future, and let colleagues pose more questions and see the responses. So
yeah, great. They were great questions, and they, in some ways, they help us to think. You ask us questions that perhaps things we haven't even thought of. So, if you find this format useful, then I'm happy to do it whenever you want me to do it, and let us know what you think. If you want us to repeat this, we certainly will. And we're all in this together. We're an open and honest organisation, and I certainly won't shy away from any questions that you put to me. And I really do appreciate the effort you've put in. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.